The Mexican werewolf is searching for blood. El Chupacabra, the goat sucker, the only thing I know that would want to suck on a goat. These feisty, creepy creatures are the vampires of the southern border. But as we're about to see, these sharp-toothed beasts often lurk further north than you'd think. So watch out for claw marks on the outside of your home. Keep an eye out for carcasses of livestock completely drained of their blood, because you might just have a chupacabra. And if you don't do something about it, you might just be the next bloodless victim. Enjoy these allegedly true chupacabra encounters. Now, are you ready for the goat sucker? This happened when I was 15 years old. I am 20 now. The story occurred when I used to live in Mexico, and the experience is still engraved in my memory since I still have nightmares about it. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Daniel, and I am Hispanic and very much a gun enthusiast. I do not consider myself brave. I would say I'm more reckless. So let's get started, shall we? One Monday during the middle of July, me and my 3 cousins, Ruben, 14, Raph, 20, and Angel, 18, decided it'd be fun to go out into the woods and hunt something to cook. Now, Raph is the oldest of us and was working as a security guard at an old rural mansion that my whole family nicknamed the Big House. The place was huge and was known to be haunted. The owner of the place once hired a medium who confirmed the presence of not just one, but 2 spirits, one being her dead husband. But I'm not sure how many of us believed it. The Big House is a 3-story small mansion in the middle of nowhere. It was more like a fancy ranch since the surroundings were very farm-like. Horses running wild, goats eating grass, cows grazing, and rabbits running around. Nearby there's a forest that Ruben and I love to explore and play in. Raph's big idea was to take the 3 of us to his work and stay the night. We would hunt and have the cookout right there. We loved the idea and agreed. Fast forward to the weekend. We all hopped in Raph's truck and he drove us to the Big House. Once we were there, me and Ruben jumped out and ran out to the woods to explore. Meanwhile, Angel and Raph stayed behind to get everything ready, the guns and all that. It was almost night, maybe 8 p.m., but we didn't mind. After a fair amount of meters in, we noticed something. There was a dead deer. Normally we wouldn't care because there are coyotes around the place, one of the reasons why Raph had the job. I'm a big guy, taller than all my cousins, so I didn't feel too scared. But what really unsettled me was the way the deer was killed. The thing was decapitated and there was no blood anywhere around. Rubes. I grabbed his arm. We gotta tell Raph, this is freaky. Yeah, man, let's go. We both walked our way back to the house. When we got back, Angel was outside counting ammunition, and Raph was inside getting the guns. Big rifles. For those that are gun people, we hunt with .308s because we hunt bigger game like boars. Angel, Raph, Ruben said shaken, we found a dead deer. Raph shrugged and gave us this condescending look. I mean, we're right next to the woods, medio. There's coyotes around and boars in those woods. I shook my head. He didn't understand. This you have to see. We nagged Raph until he finally agreed to come with us. We were going to go back out anyway. Once we arrived to the place with the dead deer, Angel looked petrified. She looked over to Raph, lip trembling. Can a coyote do this? Raph scratched his chin. I have no idea. Maybe it was the chupacabra, he joked. Raph cut it out. Ruben said slightly scared, tell me it was a coyote. It wasn't, he declared. My stomach felt cold. We heard bushes moving behind us. We all rose, our rifles ready. Well, if it is a coyote, I'm gonna light up the thing. Remember when I said I was reckless? Well, I shot twice into the bushes before we even knew what it was. Lord knows what I would have done if I had shot a person. But it was at that moment I knew that I screwed up. Something squealed and we heard it run away. The sound was like a pig getting gutted alive. What the heck was that? Angel dropped her rifle and grabbed Raph by the shoulders, shaking him. Raph pushed her away in both anger and fear. I don't freaking know. He picked up Angel's rifle and shoved it back into her hands, and I don't want to find out. Let's hunt tomorrow morning. For now, let's go back. Then he noticed something that no one but him could. There was nothing, he said. What? Ruben asked, still scared but now confused. Raph explained. Daniel shot twice, but no other animals ran or flocked away. No birds, no squirrels, nothing. After a shot like that, birds would be flying away because the noise would be so loud and terrifying to them. So where are all the animals? We gotta go back, guys, fast. After he said that, we were all scared to death. Raph was scared as well, but he wouldn't show it. He was the oldest one. He had to make us feel safe. Raph opened the door once we got back and held it for us to go in. He locked it and took us into the kitchen. What was that thing? I asked him, checking out how many bullets we had. Are we gonna stay here? I have to. I have to work, but I can drive you home tomorrow morning, all of you. He sat down and opened a beer. Then we heard it. A loud crash on the third floor, like glass shattering. I'm not going up there. Angel hugged her rifle. Reuben hid behind her. Stay here then. Daniel, you coming? Raph looked at me. I could see that it was more like begging than asking. Yeah, we've got guns, right? Even still, I didn't feel safe at all. But strength in numbers gave me a false sense of security. No. Screw that. We're all going. Angel stood up and walked over to us with Reuben behind her. I'm not staying here. The four of us, ready for something to jump out at any second, walked upstairs slowly. We could hear rumbling like someone was trying to rob the place, as if they were shifting stuff around. After we reached the third floor, Raph turned on his flashlight, and we saw the most horrifying image of our lives. It looked to be a person almost. Its skin was pale, dark blue, and had red eyes. But what most stood out were its wings, leather-like bat wings. This thing shrieked in surprise and just stood there, motionless. It stared at us. The beast was holding a bust of a cheap statue on the hallway. We couldn't see the face because Raph never illuminated it. I think he didn't want to see it. Just like when you cover your eyes during a horror movie, when you know something scary is going to happen. No one said a thing. We were all too afraid. Raph finally got it together and aimed his rifle. The creature threw the bust at him and missed, but it was enough to make Raph lose his concentration. Reuben and I shot multiple times, and the thing ran down the hallway. We chased it down, only to hear another loud crash. We ran into a broken window and saw the creature on the ground. It looked back at us, and it extended its wings. It didn't fly. Instead, it used a flap of its wings for extra lift to jump into the trees. We saw how the trees shook as the creature jumped onto them. It was large, and it definitely needed the extra lift to do that. None of us slept the entire night. We stayed in the kitchen, eating junk food and drinking beer and coffee to try to stay awake. We didn't hear any more noises for the rest of the night, but we had to be sure. We paid very close attention. As soon as the sun came up, we jumped into the truck and drove home. Raph quit his job after that. He got a new one at a retail store. I can't say I blame him. I would be lying if I told you that I see the creature every time I look out the window, because that was it. We didn't hear news about the big house, but we all agreed to never go back. And thankfully for us all, we have never seen the bat thing again. And dear bat creature, let's not meet again, because if we do, I'll be aiming for your head. Story number 2. I live in Utah, a state that is often overlooked when it comes to the paranormal. However, I can assure you that this state has had more than its fair share of strange happenings. From the Bear Lake Monster in the north, Skinwalker Ranch in the south, and even some Bigfoot sightings in the mountains, the one thing that I never thought I would see was the fabled Chupacabra. It happened only a few days ago from this submission, so I figured I would write it down while the encounter was still fresh in my mind. A group of friends and I were on a late-night drive through a canyon near Salt Lake City. We often go on these drives as there isn't much to do on a weeknight. We had just turned the corner when our headlights caught something crossing the road ahead. At first I thought it was a coyote, as this thing was about the same size and relative shape. But as we got closer, I could see that it was walking very strangely, almost more like it was hopping or galloping. Even more strange was the fact that it seemed to be missing a lot of hair. Now I would be willing to accept that this was a coyote. Perhaps it was suffering from mange. If it wasn't for what I saw next, it had abnormally large and powerful-looking hind legs, and when it turned to face our car, I could see long fangs protruding from its muzzle. After we safely exited the canyon, we were all a bit shaken up, so we decided to call it a night. I will never return to that canyon again. Story number 3. This happened some odd years ago, and I have two of my family to back me up, even though we all kind of just put it behind us. In the mountains of Georgia, there is a small town of Jasper in Pickens County. It was a small town back in the day, but it's grown since then. I'm 17, but I remember this clearly because it scared me, and this is why I believe in the creatures of the night. So before our house burnt down, we lived on a hillside. Below our place was our grandparents' house, and behind their house was a very large cow pasture. Me and my sisters are pretty fearless when it comes to going outside at night, and that's where we messed up. Just above our grandparents' house was a hand-built picnic table. We snuck out one night after our mother had fallen asleep, and it was summer, so we always stayed up late. We were sitting around the table when my older sister, M, looked up to a noise from the backyard of my grandparents' house. She panicked and told me and my younger sister, E, to get up and head home. We did as we were told, but not before we saw this thing with gray skin. It had no fur. It was crawling out of the shadows, staring us down. Me and Dylan are the older two sisters, M being older than me. I take E and put her behind me since I had a very large stick in my hand. I was always very paranoid anyway, especially when we went out at night, and I always carried a stick or a large rock at that. This beast just looked at us as we started backing up towards our house. M made sure E was the one closest to the house if this thing came to us. Hopefully me and M would be able to fend it off. E was just too young to do anything by herself. E was just about up the stairs to our porch when this thing literally came at me and M. I panicked. I wasn't much older than E, but I took the stick and I swung with all my force and body into one hit, and that's when our dogs, Rox, Tiger, and Roscoe, came from under the porch growling and snarling at this thing. It jumped toward the dogs instead of us, and I owe my life to those dogs because whatever that thing was, it ran away and our dogs gave chase. That night, once our dogs came back, they slept in the house with us. They had saved each and every one of us. Lord knows what that creature would have done. This thing, wherever it was now, I never want to see it again. But if I must, I'll be better prepared to get a picture of it, or even kill it. Story number 4. Where do I begin? This is probably one of my favorite stories to tell people about weird encounters that I've experienced. Thanks to the recent video of werewolf sightings, it reminds me a bit of my own similar encounter. My family, friends, and I all share unique stories of strange personal encounters with spirits, creatures, UFOs, and the sorts, which I would love for them to share at a later time. I'm a female, and during this time I still lived in the Piney Woods region of Texas. My friends and I were slowly growing an interest into the paranormal since our middle school years. Our particular interests were more focused on the dogman and werewolf sightings. We've also previously suspected there to be a Bigfoot in the area based on accounts from others nearby, but our suspicion of something else lurking in the woods grew the more stories we got. A majority of these encounters happened near my best friend Kelly's house in the woods just down her road. Kelly's house is located in the more rural part of our town. Her driveway was bumpy and consisted of dirt and gravel. In her front yard there was a large thicket with a bunch of blackberry bushes and pylons going through it. In her backyard there was a small wooded area with a creek bed. It ran through it in the fashion of an L. To the right of that creek bed was her grandmother's house, and of course, just down that road was the woods. The first sighting came from a childhood friend of a friend, who believed and apparently even saw a werewolf in the woods by luring it and watching it from the shed. Of course, I took the story with a grain of salt, believing it to be make-believe. However, it still is funny, considering what happened years later. A mutual friend and her brother saw the giant silhouette of what appeared to be a dog cast onto their curtains in the bedroom. The next day, all that was left behind were some scratch marks near their window, 7 feet off the ground, as well as a musty odor. There was also an account from 2 girls from our high school. They believed they sighted a chupacabra. They described it as a huge white dog with a weird gait that ran out in front of their car. My friend Kelly also spotted a gray-brownish, slouched-over dog run across the road into the woods. Chupacabra, or werewolf, all of these sightings were so similar. My sister, niece, and I have also heard strange growling and odd howl screams from our backyard. I have seen strange footprints in the woods where the encounters took place. These prints looked almost exactly like a human's, except for the toes. Instead, it looked as if it widened just a bit, and I could only make out 3 prints with clawed tips at the end. We also heard something one night, clawing against a pylon in a horse field close to Kelly's house. A year before my initial encounter took place, Kelly had called my sister and another mutual friend late at night. She was on her computer when suddenly the disturbing sounds of her neighbor's geese brought her attention to the window in the living room. This window gives a full view of her backyard. As she peered out the window, she saw a tall figure leap from across the creek near her grandmother's house and into the woods beyond the creek bed. Luckily, her grandmother keeps the porch light on, so she was able to adjust her eyes fairly quickly. As she gazed out from the window, she noticed the figure leaning up against a tree, staring right back at her. Whatever it was, it had 2 pointy ears, yellow eyes, and a tail that swung slightly in the air. The whole encounter only happened for a few minutes before it ran off in the direction it was heading. The next day, she went to investigate the creek bed and felt as if she was being watched. It was then that she heard a disembodied growl that was accompanied by the sudden stench of decay. Well, as for my experience during the time it happened, I was around 16 years old and I was spending the night at Kelly's house. There was this forest that we always enjoyed hiking in. This forest in particular looked as if it was planned on being a park. On one of our longer treks, we once discovered a sign and a few rotting benches at the third lake, located in the deepest part of the woods. There were also plenty of generally well-kept trails, sheds, and piers. During this sleepover, Kelly and I planned to go out hiking around midnight in the woods. We had done so other times before with no problem. Just us and the sounds of crickets chirping, frogs croaking, and the occasional rustle of a small animal in the bushes, always accompanied by the sense of serenity. The woods we normally hiked were located just down Kelly's road. This road was a dead end that looped around. Beyond this dead end was a gate that marked the border into the woods. There was a sign on the gate that warned others no trespassing. But of course, we paid no heed every time we jumped the gate. Unlike the previous nights we went hiking, we came prepared with flashlights and 2 dogs, one a very young rambunctious mutt and the other an elderly lab. It started out normally until we neared the forest. We both started to get this uneasy feeling. Something just wasn't right this time. The woods, after all, seemed oddly quiet that night. But we pushed on nonetheless. We jumped the gate and headed down the trail. The trail takes a right within a few feet, and a few feet after that, the trail splits off in a Y shape. If you were to take a left, you'd head deeper into the woods and end up next to the lake, and taking a right would lead you to another dead end. As we approached the Y, we started to hear rustling around us, but we assumed it to be just some other skittish animals. I stopped suddenly, bringing my friend to a halt. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to take that left. I let Kelly know, and she reassured me that she had felt the same way from the very start. Now we were both scanning the trees with our lights, until my eyes caught a fallen tree that seemed to block the path to our left. Then at that moment, for some reason, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck rise, just looking at it. I questioned Kelly about the tree as the dogs slowly made their way to it at the same time to investigate. As we were discussing the tree, Kelly quickly choked up. She was quick to tell me that as the younger dog prodded up at the tree, 2 yellow eyes jumped up from behind it. We took a couple of steps back and quickly paced ourselves out of there. We didn't run because we felt if the dogs weren't freaking out, then we shouldn't either. But we sure as hell weren't going to stay there. As we were walking down the road and about 1/4 of the way from the woods, we heard crashing and then 2 very loud thuds against the concrete. We hightailed it back towards Kelly's house as we heard the thing running towards us. It took at least 4 more thuds before it turned off into the woods on our right. From there, we could hear it crashing through the brush behind us. We didn't stop until we were catching our breath on the lighted patio of Kelly's house, and that's when Kelly spotted those same eyes bobbing up and down from the thickets in front of her house, just before we went inside. We really wanted to tell Kelly's mother what happened, when all of a sudden the dogs began to growl and bark. Sure enough, as we went out to investigate, both the dogs had their tails straight up and barking towards the thicket, but neither of them dared to enter. Kelly stayed on the patio, but I paced along the border of the thicket. I started making noises to see if I could get a response. Just after I tried howling, Kelly heard a low growl that sent her running back into the house. Several days after this encounter, Kelly began to hear noises. She would hear screaming and howling in the woods, and on some nights she would hear growling and bumping underneath her house. These sounds lasted for a week or so, until the woods finally became quiet again. Every culture has its monsters. More often than you think, these creatures are more than just mythology. They are reports of people's real-life sightings explained the best they can at the time. So the next time you're in Mexico, listening to the locals' urban legends, you've been warned. Because if you wake up to a fanged beast biting into your flesh, you're going to have a bad time. Good night. Now, we have come to the end of today's episode, and if you like these stories, then hit the like button, press the notification bell, and subscribe for more spine-tingling content. And we will see you in the next story.